This is On Second Thought, brought to you by Hook'em.com. I'm Cedric Golden with the Duck Kirk Bohls. And Duck, what a nice matchup Saturday to open up the 2025 college football season. Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns venturing north to Columbus to play the Ohio State Buckeyes at the Horseshoe. And guess what? We have a first time participant on our podcast. It only took us 367 episodes. We
10 years.
finally got around to getting the best storyteller in the business, Doug, Dave Wilson of ESPN.com, the pride of Kilgore College. What a
Right.
horrible school that is, but more on that later. Dave, it's a pleasure. How are you, sir?
This is a big deal for me. I appreciate you fellas. I know I always wear you out about it, so I appreciate you finally giving in and letting me show my face on your podcast.
Well, I know it's not Paul Feinbaum, which you're going to do later today, but we do
Really?
appreciate you.
You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have anybody on that
That's
show.
that's
I
how
know.
big he is. That's how big Dave is.
Huge.
So
He's huge.
yeah. So gosh, where do we start, Dave? You got any introductory remarks at all? Anything you want to do to introduce yourself or sell a ESPN subscription?
No, we did launch the new app, go check out the new app, keep me employed. But, no, I just obviously said as a fellow East Texan and his wife's a proud Kilgore College graduates, we claim her, unlike said and his far inferior Apache Bells over there in Tyler. But you know,
Oh,
it's been yeah, go ahead, said.
go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Dave.
give you the floor to
I don't
retort.
want the floor. You keep talking. Go ahead.
But no, it's a big deal. I mean, you guys are a big deal to me. I've read you guys forever, so I'm sort of a latecomer to this writing thing. So I appreciate you being here. You guys have helped me a lot in the process, so it means a lot.
Said you did know that Dave Wilson was an Aggie at once upon a time, right?
Yeah, I like the Aggies. I've got nothing against that.
How's your voice changing? Your voice dropped.
Are
I
you
don't,
are you saying I'm a are you saying I'm a former Aggie, Kirk? You know they don't like that.
it's no
they
such
don't like it.
thing. Once an Aggie, always an Aggie.
But if there was a former Aggie, it'd be Dave Wilson. So how long did you last at A&M?
3 semesters. It was not. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't. I was the youngest person in my graduating class. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. My dad said you can go wherever you want, but the check's going to A&M, so that made up a big part of my decision.
That sounds like a smart man. Well, man, you
No.
mentioned the app. I got up this morning and read your beautiful, beautiful piece on Arch Manning and his family. And you went to the Manning Passing Academy, and that's on Kirk's and I bucket list. That's on our bucket list. We've never been to the Manning Academy. If you could tell us about that whole experience, that whole atmosphere with all the great quarterbacks, and then getting to talk to all the Mannings.
It's a really incredible deal. It's a very I don't know how else to describe it other than it's a really fascinating little slice of Americana, right? You're in Thibodaux, Louisiana, and at Nicholls State, and it's a quiet little town. And all of a sudden, for a week a year, it's like 40. I think they had 48 of the best college quarterbacks in the country as counselors. Um, they do skills competition where Arch is trying to throw the ball in the basket to try to win canes for a year. And it's really like well, for lack of a better term, a collegial atmosphere. They're all staying in the dorms at Nicholls State. Um, you know, uh, Arch went to Walmart with Garrett Nussmeier, and I always thought that's hilarious. Imagine if you're in South Louisiana and the LSU quarterback and a Manning walk into Walmart, what that must be like. Two of the most famous people in the state, and it's just really cool. The whole town revolves around it. I remember one of the restaurants I went to, the lady said, "You should have been here last year. Cooper was dancing on the bar in here." and
Wow.
they just it's a blast. It's a really cool, loose environment. Just kind of you can meander around any field and just see. There's Cade Klubnik over there, and there's Gio Lopez over here, and there's Haynes King over here from Longview, Texas. Had to throw that in there, but we just it's just really cool. And they all the guys are messing around with each other. I think they've said 25 of the last year's 32 NFL starting quarterbacks went through that place. And they've had chances to move it. And they say, nope, we're Louisiana family. This is where we're keeping it. They donated a new field for the stadium there. So it's Manning Field at Guidry Stadium at Nicholls State. I don't know. It's one of the coolest things I've ever been to, really. It's just very laid back, easy going, wide open. And there's just people everywhere having fun. And Cooper sort of is the MC of the event. You can see how good he is on his feet, on the mic, hollering, shouting people out. And so it's a lot of fun.
And you got to visit with Archie and Cooper some, and boy, Arch didn't fall far from the tree, did he? I mean, is he almost identically to Archie in terms of maybe talent with the wheels, but just that humble, unassuming, grounded personality they both have?
Yeah, he really is. You can tell. In my story, I talked to two of his friends that he grew up with in New Orleans, and they both go to Alabama now. And that came about because I asked Arch. Arch was just kind of standing there, and it's very rare, obviously, to get to talk to these guys with the way access works. And so Archie just said, "You want to say something to Arch? He's right there." And I said, "Yeah, it'd probably be good if I said something to Arch." And so I just
nice. You don't want to be rude.
I talked to him for like 5 minutes, and you could tell he's just like, "Yeah, I don't." But he actually said, "I appreciate you talking to me like a normal person," which is you don't normally hear in interviews. And he said, "Hey man," I said, "Look, I can tell you don't want to do this. If I was going to talk to people about you, who should I talk to?" And he said, "Call my boys. They need the press more than I do." And so I really think he's lived with this his whole life. He knows what it's like. He can deal with it, but he doesn't have to like it. And so he's more than, I thought it was very telling that he was so happy to talk about going to St. Louis with Wingo, because he said, Wingo was the legend. They were all there to see Wingo. They all knew his touchdown dances. He's a hero there. And I thought that must be cool for him to be in a place where he's the supporting cast member rather than the star of the show.
We're gonna always compare him to Quinn Ewers because that was the guy he replaced. And the one thing I see, Dave, is Quinn did not like doing media at all. Just hated doing media. He got better at it, but you could tell he just didn't really want to do it. Arch doesn't mind doing it, and he's so good at it, but he's always deflecting and trying to get other people some shine. And I read in that piece, and one of those guys was like, if he wasn't in Austin, he'd be doing shots with us right now,
Yeah.
bar. And I just and then you ask Arch about it, and he goes, "I'm 21. I can take shots at a bar if I want." That is
I love that.
copy, Dave Wilson. That is really good copy. And Quinn didn't always give us that really good copy. He did the job that was required. He talked to us, but Arch makes it seem so easy. And do you think it's because of those famous uncles and his dad, who's a real personality? He's kind of a updated version of those, even Grandpa Red.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the lady in Thibodaux telling me Cooper's dancing on the bar. I think if you grow up with that type of personality, you're used to being sort of put on the spot, put out in the open, you're on your feet. I mean, the way they all, one of the funny things about Arch is the way he always talks about Archie in such a reverent way, but he also likes to poke the bear about,
After him, yeah.
well, he can't hear, so he texts a lot. He drops those things in there. And when he played, when he played, offensive linemen wide receivers were in a 3-point stance. So there's really not a lot he can tell me on that stuff. And so you can tell it's just part of their shared experiences. They all wear each other out, but they also build each other up. And so I think he is good at it. He says he doesn't like doing it. He says he doesn't like talking, and he doesn't want all the cameras in his face. But when they do, he's a natural.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's it's like we hear these stories about everybody talking about how Hyde is having the most fun of anybody in the family, and Arch saying, Hyde's going to tear it up in Columbus Friday night. I think that's their dynamic, and I think that's probably a benefit to him. And that's not a shot at Ewers. Obviously, we all know there's different personalities, different types of people. And I don't think don't think Arch particularly likes it either, but it's just he really is a natural at it. I mean, I don't know if you saw he has a new Warby Parker commercial today with Cooper, and it's really funny. It's good, and I think they just turn that stuff over to Cooper and say, "Have at it."
Yeah, he signed a 3-year deal with apparently he's worn glasses since he was 3 years old. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
a
That
picture
picture.
of him on
We had a
Twitter.
picture in the story of him at 4 wearing his little glasses,
Oh, cool.
I
and
love that.
Great shot. Great photo.
Being
yeah,
high. Yeah, I love that. I love also the exchange between Arch and Archie over having a huddle presence. You want to recount that one for our listeners and watchers?
yeah. I thought that was a really great example of art. That happened. That came about after the Texas Monthly story when Archie was sort of frustrated that you know it's all changed so much, right? Peyton talks about how they didn't have cell phones when he was in school, and it was so much easier to go out and not be photographed or have everything telegraphed every move. And I think for Archie that's been an adjustment too, because Archie's been sort of this statesman of football for so long. President of the National Football Foundation. He shows up at every football thing. He's been this great ambassador for football, so everybody has his phone number, right? And so he's easy to get a hold of, and you call him and he talks to you, and he's like, I don't really understand your business anymore. The fact that I can say something and it all of a sudden becomes headlines all over the place. And so he said, like the Texas Monthly story, when I say, well, Arch will be at Texas. He said, of course, I'm just his grandfather. I'm just assuming I don't have any input in it. And then it goes crazy. And so he's like, and he tells me, I'll give you an example of that, of how much I don't know. And he says when Arch first started playing tackle football, going into 6th grade, Cooper and Allen asked me to drive him to a baseball tournament that they couldn't get to. And I said, sure, I would love to do that. So they have a great relationship. They grew up together. With Archie and Arch were always around each other in New Orleans. And so he said, sure, I'd love to take him. So he drives him. And it was like one of the first times that Arch really sort of locked in on wanting to pick Archie's brain. And so for Archie, it was really exciting, right? He says, Red, he calls him Red. He says, Red, I'm going to play tackle football next year for the first time, and I'm going to be the quarterback. What do I need to know? And he said, well, here's the thing. The most he said, I got really excited. I gave him my spiel that I give every quarterback. The most important thing for a quarterback is huddle presence. You got to get in there, get the play in, get out, take charge, and run your huddle and get out of there. And Arch just says, well, Red, we don't ever huddle. And Archie's like, and I just felt really old, and then you realize, yeah, I mean, it's totally different than when I played. So what do I know?
I love that story. I love that story. Well, how does this manifest itself this year? I mean, like, gosh, I mean, I don't know how it can get any more, scrutinized and more headlines and everything like that. I mean, and teams are going to really go after Arch, aren't they? I mean, not just the crowd and the fans, but the defenses are really going to be psyched up to put him in his place, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the nature of college football, right? I mean, everybody likes to take their shots. It's the nature of playing for Texas. Really, it always has been. Everybody, and they love to say that they're a target on the back of everybody, and they are. When I wrote a story a few years ago about Horns Down, why it became a thing and why it endured. I talked to a sports psychologist, and he said of all the teams in the country, when they surveyed fans and asked them who the team they considered their rival, Texas had like 3 times as many schools as anybody else that considered them their rival. And you do see that. I mean, it's kind of the hierarchy of the way things work. And so I don't think that that's anything. I'm sure playing at a 2A school in New Orleans as a Manning, he probably has dealt with that his whole life. He started since he was a freshman, and obviously it'll get bigger. I think he's probably a little more insulated from it now than he would have been, other than, I did think it was funny on Monday when he said he has a private Instagram account, and when he sees anything about himself, he clicks not interested. So I do think it's funny. One of the things that didn't make the story that I thought was interesting is I talked to a coach who got a visit, and he said, what I found fascinating is for the family that had the most leverage and had the most knowledge and the most understanding of how this all works, they were the ones that expected or asked for the least in terms of what are you going to do for us, or what are you going to build around him. They understood how it worked. And he said, I I thought that was what was unique about Cooper and Arch during the process was that they genuinely were looking for what they were looking for and not what somebody else could do for them.
You know, we kind of think we know what's going to happen. We think Arch Manning is going to be amazing, and that's what the tea leaves say. Um, but have you ever? I mean, I've been in this game for a while, and we know how long Kirk's been in the game. I don't know that I've ever come across you, dude. You're old. Why are you looking at me like that? You're old.
Got to
You
get your
old.
shot.
Your social security number begins with zero. You're old. Um, but you guys, have y'all ever been around a more grounded superstar to be than Arch Manning? I mean, I mean, it seems to all roll off of him, and the whole world is watching. And it's kind of cool to watch the beginning of this. I just don't know that I've been around someone who is so at ease with burgeoning superstardom.
I don't know, Kirk. What was Doak Walker like?
He was no Bobby Lane. Now, Bobby
No,
Lane, go ahead.
no, I do think it is. I mean, somebody asked me one time, they were like, "Do you think Arch feels the pressure?" And I said, "I think probably growing up in New Orleans as a Manning is pressure. I
Right.
mean, when you play at Newman, you're playing where Eli and Peyton played, um, and so yeah, there's probably some of that, but they just seem impervious to it,
Yeah.
and I do think it's just because you are accustomed to the noise. And his friend in my story talked about how being in seventh grade and opening, social media and seeing a post of Arch throwing to Hyde like in seventh grade, and he's like, "This is nuts." So like I remember at the Sugar Bowl when everyone gathered around him and Quinn was sitting at the podium by himself. Arch said that day, "I don't see y'all giving this much attention to other backup quarterbacks, but I'm used to it."
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, like, yeah, I'm sure he is used to it.
Yeah. That's been his life forever.
Hmm.
It really has. So anyway, huge game. How do you think it's going to turn out at the shoe? You
I
got a
told you not to.
prediction for us?
I told you not to ask me about sports, Kirk.
Just a
Uh,
very little X and O question.
I know. No, I mean, I think it's obviously a tough matchup to open for Texas with four new offensive linemen and the middle of that defense. Obviously, there's talent everywhere, but the lines being the biggest question mark is kind of the scariest part when you're going up against a team like Ohio State at home. And so I think I would give Ohio State a little bit of an edge. I think it's probably a 7-point game for Ohio State, but that's no, you know, uh, I do think it's anybody's guess, which is with as much turnover both teams have had. But I just think at home, even given Texas's performance on the road and their winning streak, I think it's tough to break in all the pieces that Texas is going to break in that environment.
Well,
And
we know you're going to Columbus, and if you can, tell us what you're going to be working on up there. I'm so fascinated by this story, and yeah, by the time it comes out, it'll be too late for the suckers. So, um, and I know you've been working on this for a while. Give us a little peek about what you'll be doing in Columbus.
Well, it's the last game day for Lee Corso. He's 90. He's been an incredible ambassador for college football. Really, the kind of stuff that we love about college football, the rivalries, the fun, the teasing, taunting the other fans, and the original guy who stood up in front of a crowd of people and put on the other opposing team's headgear.
I
So
love
I'm fortunate that I'm gonna get to spend a Saturday as a fly on the wall at his last game day and hopefully try to capture it. It's a tough assignment. I'm a little nervous about it given the stakes, and it'll probably be very emotional. You guys know I'm a sap, so I'll be right there with him
Don't you
probably.
start
But
crying. I mean,
oh
Kirk Herbstreit cries enough for everybody.
yeah, well I'll be right. I
You
promise
don't need
you,
to
I'll
be
be right there
crying.
with him. I'll be right. There's nothing wrong with crying, Sid.
I want to
I
know
know,
other.
babe. I know. There's nothing wrong with it. I know. I know, buddy. I love you.
Hold
There
it together. Hold
we
it
go.
together.
There we
I,
go.
I want to know, what story you're wanting to write too in the future. And as Cedric alluded to, you are the quintessential storyteller in our business. And, to me, you and Wright Thompson are the two best writers ESPN has. Wright just uses about 3,000 more words per story than you. But you guys, you guys make
Well,
me mad.
you know when Kirk Bohls said you write too long. You write too long.
Well, I'm surprised to hear you say that because all you've ever told me is that you're still trying to finish the last story I wrote 3 years ago. Um,
Was that the barbecue story or
it
Big Bertha?
doesn't matter. All of them. I don't think you finished one of them yet.
I'm
Switzer.
trying.
You're
Switzer
short.
was a good one. Switzer.
You're short attention span, Kirk. But
I am. I am.
no, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of I guess I'll know it when I see it. But right now I'm just ready to get this one out. Get this. This has been a big week. I got to have my car dealer story this week, which is a big deal for me as a son of a car dealer in East Texas. And then the Arch story was tough because we all have to write one, and so it's how do you do it? And I think I probably overworked it, but that was fun. And then now I'm ready to just watch some football and see what happens.
The
Well,
thing
nobody
that
did it better than you.
yeah, the thing that bothered me about that story, Dave, and I really felt your pain is, I mean, you just didn't have any access. I mean, it was
Hey
rough.
man,
I mean, it's rough. It's so rough when you only can talk to 16 people for
well, you
so
got to keep
for,
calling people, man. You got to keep calling people.
that's
Oh,
a
and,
joke, sir. That's a joke.
and before we let him go, if you haven't read the Barry Switzer story last year,
Please do. Please
it
do.
was a prize, and it was
Love
to me
Switzer.
the best sports story of the year. So be
Let
sure
me
and go.
tell you, let me tell you a quick thing that's one of the funniest phone calls I've ever gotten. The Cowboys documentary came out that everybody's talking about on Netflix.
It's
And
fire.
the other day I'm driving down the road and my phone rings and it says Barry Switzer, which is still surreal anytime that happens. And he calls me and he asked me if I've watched it. And I said, no. And he starts yelling at me that I can't watch it because I can't figure out my effing Netflix password to watch some effing documentary on effing Netflix. And I was like, that's the most relatable thing that I will ever have with Barry Switzer. I can never remember my Netflix password anyway. But how great is that? That one of the stars of the series can't watch it because he can't find his password.
There's only one Barry Switzer.
He's the
There'll
best.
never be another. There'll never
I'll
be
say that right here in Austin, Texas. He's incredible. I love the guy. So
me too. We've had him on the show, and he's literally on our podcast, Dave, and he's talking to people. He's like, we
Other
ask him
people.
a question, goes, hey, how's it going? How's it going? Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm
oh yeah,
talking to these guys on this podcast right now. What else did you need, boys? I mean, it was just
He's
the
one of
yep,
a kind.
weirdest, most wonderful conversation we've had on this thing.
yeah. It's great.
Man.
All
Well,
right,
you got a million press requests you have to fulfill, so
I
we
don't.
appreciate you sparing a few minutes of your time with us, okay? And don't be such a stranger, okay?
Yeah, well, my old pal David Duffy up there in Bristol, in Canton, Connecticut, is going to be very excited about this. So appreciate that.
But tell him you were a
Mr.
star, okay?
Duffy, thank
All
you
right.
for listening. He's from Brownsville, right, Dave?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, man. Shout out to Brownsville. Thank you, brother, for joining us. And we will see you in Columbus, man. Be safe.
Yeah, we will. See you.